Okay, Chris, in your experience, what are some of the important factors for users to consider when selecting security solutions to protect their mobile devices, especially when we're talking in the context of mobile scams? You are a security solution provider, so this question is very apt to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And first I want to say we're extremely lucky as end users to have people like Eugene, Casey, representing Google and Samsung, putting such a large effort into securing their platforms for all of our users. And before I get to the question, I think it's important to look at both perspectives, both the top-down perspective of, hey, I'm a vendor, I'm the OS manufacturer, and the bottom-up perspective, I'm an end user. And in many cases, there can be some differences there. Like Google, as you saw, builds in a lot of extra protection, a lot of layers of protection for users. Samsung adds their own flavor as well. But at the end of the day, if you're using a Huawei device running Harmony OS, you may not be able to use those same features. So in the landscape of Android, since it is open source, you do have a lot of customizations that are done to the base that Google provides and the base that Samsung provides, whether it's a end user modification of sideloading an application or a manufacturer adding their own features to the platform. So what we focus on, and I love Eugene's example, defense in depth, is providing an extra layer of defense for those cases. When you're a user that's running something that doesn't have access to the Google Play Store, for example, and you need an application that you can't get, well, your only option is sideloading. How do I know that that sideloaded application that I'm adding to my device is safe? So we focus on providing use cases for end users to check their devices, their applications, in situations where they maybe can't use all of those great security features. And then we also focus at the top level as well, partnering with people like Google and Samsung to scan applications as they're developed, because the more developers, the more manufacturers where security is front of mind, the better for everyone. So partnering on both aspects, I think, is important. And we talk about the question here of, how do I evaluate a security tool? It's a very common one. And, as you go look around the market, you go look at the Google Play Store for, permissions requested for each application that you're considering, it can be pretty troubling. If I want to install my antivirus application, but it needs access to 19 of the 25 permissions that I have on my device, well, by adding the security application, I'm giving up a lot of personal data in order to be secure. So I think there's a balance there that still hasn't been struck correctly with all the solutions on the market. And some examples, we work with a lot of enterprises that are even paying for security tools and pushing them out to users. And we've heard that maybe sometimes only 10% of users turn on the security tool in their enterprise. And why? Because they're afraid of being spied on at work. They don't want their company knowing, which websites they go to, where they are, and whether or not that's true, whether or not that actually happens in the background. It's certainly a fear for end users that you don't want to be observed while you're being secure. So I think it's important to assess and balance that privacy impact of that security tool you're looking at. And I did want to give some hard examples of types of things that can be possible with those misconfigurations. So, if you are a manufacturer, for example, and you're using AOSP, but you're modifying it, the Android open source project, but you're modifying it to add your own features. One example of something in 2016 that we found, the #1 selling phone on Amazon at the time was a $50 Android device. Why? Because it was $50 and it was easy to get. But in the manufacturing of that device, they used a firmware provider to update the firmware, which included a backdoor into the system for a remote command and control possibility. So had an open WebSocket, you could send requests in to take advantage of that multi-level protection and just skip to that lower level by using that open socket and take control of the device and monitor the user. So these modifications are not only surface level. If they're done in the wrong way, either intentionally or unintentionally, they can compromise the whole stack of protections as well. And it can even apply to end user applications as well. So back in 2018, we were asked by a customer of ours to look into a little known app called Musical LY. when it was rebranding to something called TikTok. And Android provides some great flexibility for developers to use multiple features of their platform to communicate between their own applications. So say you have two Microsoft applications. One wants to get the context that you've already requested from the other one. They can have an inter-app communication to talk to each other and share that data. At the time, we found an application called Apex Launcher, which was a phone launcher to replace your default home screen, customization for the end user. And that application interacted with a second application, Apex Notifier, to get your notification data to your home screen. So all a legitimate use case, very valid from an end user perspective. But at the same time, we noticed that the TikTok application at that time in 2018 also included the custom permission to get the notifications as well. So this is a problem from an end user's perspective because in my privacy dashboard, it's showing that only Apex Notifier has that permission. But in the end, it's possible for other applications, if they're not protected properly, to take advantage of those custom permissions. And I will say, there are protections available for developers to protect those types of custom permissions. Ability to signature check them, so only applications with the same signature as mine can access it. In this case, that wasn't done. Again, either misuse, lack of knowledge, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, there's situations, because of this open ecosystem where, vulnerabilities and issues can be introduced at different parts of the life cycle. So it's important for not only vendors to buy in and do security, but also for end users to have the ability to do checks themselves.
Okay, thank you, Chris.